Hi. Can I just get like a small black coffee, crispy chicken wrap, and then three Canadian fireworks and a crispy chicken wrap? Yeah, thank you. We're back. Tim Hortons used to and still kind of is a cultural icon in Canada. I'm your host Hojat, and today we'll be talking about the fall of Tim Hortons as we discuss its once great influence, demanding stakeholders, and abuse of temporary workers. When I was little, Tim Hortons was my absolute favorite place to go to. Despite being a second-generation Canadian, my parents and I quickly picked up the culture of going to our local Timmy's. It was a third place where I could get my French vanilla after swim class, or a crispy chicken wrap when we had nothing else at home. And the chicken noodle soups were something else when it was a late night in the winter. I would assume most kids in the country who were raised here had different memories, but the one thing that remained constant was Tim Hortons. Unfortunately, I personally felt as if taste, quality, and service have all been coming down for years now. I already knew about the shrinkflation and issues regarding other fast food restaurants, but when I realized that Tim Hortons was going through the same thing, I finally decided to sit down and do my own research. Here's what I found. For starters, Tim Hortons isn't currently the Canadian company we've always seen it as. In December 2014, 51% of Tim Hortons was bought by 3G Capital for $12.5 billion. This Brazilian-American company also has influence over Restaurant Brands International, which technically owns Tim Hortons and does have their headquarters in Toronto, Canada. But it is evident that Tim Hortons can't exactly be called purely Canadian, and decisions for the company are often made outside of the country. Furthermore, Restaurant Brands International only had their headquarters here in Canada because under the conservative Harper government, it was believed that making Canada more business-friendly through cutting corporate taxes would help the economy, and therefore, these purchases would be a benefit to the country. This came with a multitude of issues. 3G Capital was in charge of making cuts wherever possible, like forcing franchisees to keep prices the same amid inflation, which caused many problems we'll speak about later.
Acquisitions, efficiency, cost cutting, and profits were prioritized above all else. What had once been a beloved Canadian icon was reduced to just another cog in a multinational money machine.
Furthermore, a loyalty system would be constantly delayed and quickly turn from a simple system of buying X amount of coffees and getting one free to a point system where you need 400 points to get one free coffee. And since 10 points is worth $1 spent, you would need $40 for a single free coffee.
It's crazy.
Franchisees lost power due to changing rules, and there was a lot of conflict amongst them. Also, food and quality has really come down. On the internet, there are a lot of people complaining, and personally, I've noticed smaller wraps with less chicken and vegetables, while my bagels have an embarrassing amount of cream cheese.
Have you noticed something different about the donuts at Tim Hortons these days? Indeed, numerous sources have reached out to us, and they are saying that shrinkage is a big problem at Tim Hortons these days. They're saying that the donuts are resembling Timbits more than they are Bear Claws.
Shrunk the farmer's wrap and changed the packaging. This is inflation. This is inflation right here.
In 2018, the province of Ontario increased the minimum wage from $11.60 to $14, then to $15 a year later. While this sounded like a good thing, Tim Hortons, as mentioned, forced franchisees to tank the price instead of increasing the costs of their menu, which dipped into profits by a large amount. So, to solve this issue, franchise owners decide to cut paid breaks and benefits as well as other incentives. So, despite being paid $14 an hour at the time, then $15, it became less than worth it to work at Tim Hortons, and so franchisees began to lose workers. Then came their solution, which would harm the brand, customers, and Canada's workforce as a whole. Disclaimer: everything I will be discussing will be shared in the most objective way possible. Tim Hortons began hiring temporary workers from other countries. Memes online have even appeared mocking the brand, calling it Sing Hortons, which some Canadians may resonate with. But we can't exactly call these temporary workers the villains. It is a policy that Tim Hortons has decided to heavily rely on and actively fights for the ability to use temporary workers. Temporary workers are used by Tim Hortons to get cheap and loyal labor. By bringing in immigrants from third world countries who are often desperate to stay in Canada, they can entice them to work at Tim Hortons for long shifts and unfair wages. This predatory practice is very convenient for franchisees who need cheap labor. It also doesn't help that these immigrants often can't speak English, which causes them to be more complicit. One example is a story from British Columbia. Van den Bosch had 4 Mexican workers who worked under him while also being their landlord. The workers were making ends meet by working at 2 Tim Hortons locations, and despite being doubled up in rooms by sleeping in bunk beds, they had to pay per person. One even said during an interview, "When Tim Hortons advertises the double-double, I don't believe this is what most Canadians had in mind." Through all of this, 2 were fired and deported back to Mexico after simply raising concerns about their working conditions, while the other 2 fled in the middle of the night, as according to them, they were horrified by the idea of working there any longer. They eventually filed a human rights report on Van den Bosch. Through all of this, we see the mass immigration crisis swell and poor customer service increase because, as mentioned, these temporary workers cannot speak fluent English or French. Additionally, this takes away job opportunities for teenagers and college or university students who want to get job experience or some kind of income. This being another way that Tim Hortons has become less Canadian and for Canadians. The franchise has also fought very hard to try and keep this system in place. After the government terminated a measure which allowed companies to have up to 30% of their workforce be temporary foreign workers in select sectors during the pandemic, Tim Hortons lobbied the federal government for well over a year to increase the limit from 10%. Of course, our best friend, Restaurant Brands International, met MPs from a multitude of parties. One MP stated that Restaurant Brands International wanted to speed up the renewal process for workers already in the system, while Polyev wants to axe the temporary foreign workers program, saying that they're using the immigration system to pad the pockets of corporate elites and other insiders at the expense of Canadian jobs. On the other hand, Carney, during a CTV News interview, states that
that program has a role. It has to be focused in terms of its role. And it's part of what we're reviewing. It's part of what we will be discussing, how well the temporary foreign worker program is working and how our overall immigration system is working. We've been absolutely clear as a government that we want, and we're putting in place policies so that the overall level of immigration as a proportion of the population will decline. Now, the biggest contributor to immigration is not temporary foreign workers. It's a variety of other factors. When I talk to businesses around the country, their number 1 issue is tariffs, and their number 2 issue is access to temporary foreign workers.
comments on the video weren't as understanding though. Some saying, "My teenage son spent the whole summer volunteering because where we live in Mississauga, all the places in close proximity have been hiring temporary workers. There were a couple of part-time positions, but nothing for the summer jobs at all." Its role is to depress wages and increase shareholder profits. While I myself will not take a stance on which idea is more correct, I will comment that I find it suspicious that companies are complaining about a lack of temporary foreign workers, but not workers in general. And with the current job crisis for young people, I think these statements do raise concerns. Let me first preface by saying that, as many of you know, Tim Hortons was, and to an extent still is, an important part of Canadian culture. This company can be revived, but Tim Hortons is certainly taking steps in the wrong direction. Through nostalgia bait, the franchise is trying to lure Canadians back in, and this is seen through many of their target audience, and some others like myself, enraged that foreigners are trying to profit off of our culture. So disappointed. Oh God. Tim Hortons was once a third place for Canadians, going to their local coffee shop to meet the same sweet lady at the counter, meeting with your other local residents, and sitting down to enjoy your meal. That is always fresh. Not to mention the Roll the Rim campaign, where with every cup of coffee, there was a potential prize for anything from a free donut to a literal car. I only ever got the free donut. Either way, it incentivized people to choose Tim Hortons for their place for a daily cup of coffee, because if you can't get a car out of it, it's a no-brainer. This idea of a third place not only resonates with people, but entices them to stay, buy more while they sit down to do work or have a meal with family and friends. A clean place where I was comfortable to go to the bathroom. Tim Hortons became like home, so even Canadian military settlements abroad had one. They also funded hockey whenever possible. An article from The Walrus states, a country that struggles with its own identity, with bickering states, a reconciliation problem, and other issues, Tim Hortons used to be able to find a middle ground in that. Let's go back to the 2011 elections. Both the Liberal and Conservative leaders, Michael Ignatieff and Stephen Harper respectively, were trying to be seen in images accompanied by their morning Tim Hortons cup of coffee, to be seen as for the common people, and gain popularity. Unfortunately for Michael Ignatieff, he would accidentally be seen with a Starbucks coffee cup, creating the term liberal Starbucks, and Stephen Harper went on to win the election. The Liberals didn't even become the official opposition, with the NDP taking that role. While I'm not saying that Tim Hortons was the reason an entire party rose to the top while the other fell to the bottom, it is clear that some kind of influence was present. It's not like a company has outright replaced Tim Hortons yet as Canada's preferred cafe. So there could be some room for Tim Hortons to once again rise to the top. And I, for one, am hoping that happens once again. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, Canadian or not. And I'll see you in the next video. Go Canada for the World Cup.